And
Okay,
we're
we are
live.
live. Yeah, know and breathe. Okay. Uh, I have a dog eating breakfast right underneath me, so we'll see if you guys can hear that. Good morning or good afternoon, David. What's up, man?
Doing very well. How are you doing?
I woke up to I made some changes in some of my apps, and it's a small number, but it's doubled or tripled the in-app purchases. So that's always something that is fun to wake up to. It's the new version's
Wow.
been live for about 2 or 3 days, and the last 2 or 3 days I've seen an uptick of 2 or 3 times. So
So
um,
we'll need to talk about that on the podcast.
yeah, well, it's actually pretty simple. I added a bunch of in-app purchases, and the new in-app purchases have resonated, I guess. So it's especially interesting to me right now because I'm trying to trim down my portfolio and not have so many apps. And so I'm selling them. So a 10, 20, $30 uptick a day is an extra, that's an extra $30 a day is almost $1,000 a month. And if you're selling these things at 15 months revenue, it's like a $30 day uptick is a $15,000 uptick in value. So yeah, so
Yeah,
that's good news, right?
it's your kind of math, isn't it?
We talk about like don't go crazy math, but fortunately, I've sold a couple apps using that math, and it's worked. So yeah, that's how impactful these kind of changes can be. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in a good mood, man. Um, I have your
This
notes
week,
here. You want to just dive in?
yeah, we have a couple of, I think actually for a weekly review, quite something to talk about. So
Yeah.
first doing some housekeeping. As usual, thank you very much for all the comments and the engagement on appbusinesspodcast.com. Had some, great conversations there in the comments. If you haven't looked at it, you should check it out. Especially, I think when you go to the main site, you can see how many comments each episode gets. And so if you can see an episode has a couple of comments, check that out because there's definitely some interesting question and answers in there. So thanks, of course, for apparently sharing the podcast with your buddies and whatnot, because the podcast is doing very well, growing each week. So thank you very much. That's very uplifting.
Yeah.
That's something that makes me happy when I wake up, looking at the stats. Really nice. Um, so, as usual, we're going to talk a little bit about the episodes that we released this week, talk a little bit about what happened in the industry. But apart from that, I still think this is an experiment, like this whole weekly Hangout live thing. And I just want to ask you, and I will probably repeat this on the podcast as we don't have that many live listeners
The
yet or live viewers
the
yet.
8 people who will watch this,
Yeah,
right?
but I just want to ask you um, how, like not you, Chris, but you, the listener, how we could make this more interesting or how we could make this generate more value for you. And one suggestion that I have is to maybe not always, not like every week, but maybe once a month, we can have some listeners join the live call and do something like a live Q&A or a live coaching session where the listeners can come, ask us their questions, come with their problems, and we'll try to help them as much as we can, as we would in a paid consulting session. But rather than them paying us the consulting fee, we'll have it live on the podcast on the feed here on the live hangout and on YouTube then, and so everybody can benefit from it, and the community can share in that way. So
Yeah.
that would be just a suggestion. If anyone wants to do that, just send me an email, david@appbusinesspodcast.com, and we talk, and we can have you on this live show.
Cool. I like that.
And any other suggestions that would make the weeklies better, also send me an email. That would be awesome. Cool. Last week's episodes, 31, 32, 33. 31 was Pietro Sacomani. I really have trouble with his surname. I'm so sorry. I think I actually pronounced it incorrectly on the episode. But yeah, sorry, Pietro. But it was a great, great interview. Got a lot of out of it, and he is, I think, co-founder of Mobiloud. So check that out. It's a cool interview.
Yeah.
I've actually decided to maybe not go into that much detail for the episodes anymore. I think that could be boring. Give me feedback if otherwise. Do you have anything to say about that, Chris?
No, I mean it was a good one. I think I mean I agree with you. Without like just recapping for all those listeners who already listened to it, yeah, it was cool. It was a good episode, and check it out. That's the Monday's episode.
Yeah. So Wednesday we had an SOP with just an episode with just Chris and me, and we were talking about SOPs. That was a quick one. So if you need a quick listen, it's like 15 minutes or 10 minutes or so. And he like Chris just shares his wisdom about
Huh.
SOPs and how he uses that in his business.
And here's some examples of ones, and I listed
Yeah,
like the top 15 I use the most, and that one was kind of like a little mini hit. I think these little 10-minute, really specific. Here's
really
how I do it.
focused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have more like that in the future. I think that's um, like very value packed. Like the value per minute rate is pretty good on those.
Yeah.
So we'll try to keep that up even on longer ones.
Hmm.
Um, so SOP, just to tease you, that standard operating procedure, if you don't know what that is, it basically is writing down processes so other people can execute them for you in your business. And so check that out if that's anything that sounds good for you. Um, and that was really my favorite talk or conversation of the week. It was really cool. We had Steve P. Young on the show, who is host of the mobile app chat. That is, another podcast basically about the same topic or in the same niche that we are. Um, you have to listen to it to pick up, like, he's taking things a little bit at a little bit different angle, I guess, but it's a recommendation from me nonetheless. He's really good. He has a very interesting story, which he honestly, personally shares on this episode, which I was really overwhelmed by and found just very nice and open of him to share that on the show. So I really like that, and check it out. Check out Mobile App Chat. It's a really cool podcast. I've subscribed to it. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, he's got a lot more guests than we do, and he's on episode like
Yeah.
150. But I could see him coming back to the show often. He's kind of like our new buddy type of thing. I think David's going to be on his show. I'm going to do a webinar with him in a couple of weeks. I haven't even told you about yet, David, but it's
Nice.
something that he cooked up. So he's just one of these guys that's doing a lot of different things, and David and I like kind of getting our hands dirty in different things. So I could see a lot more of Steve on the show, or just doing stuff with us. But I would say that was a really, if you've got a year or two in mobile dev under your belt or more, and you want to hear like a kind of like a veteran talk about it. It's not like he's got hundreds of apps or anything like that, but he's got some unique ideas that I've never done, and from everything from like hitting up the press to there's all sorts of little tricks that he had. So I
Mhm.
would say for 40 minutes it was a pretty good conversation.
Absolutely. It was, I think, the longest episode so far,
Mhm.
and also didn't get tired of it at all. So, like, after we stopped recording, we still talked for 10, 15 minutes, and we're actually a
Yeah.
little bit disappointed we didn't keep recording because there was some good stuff there. But we'll
Yeah.
keep him coming back, and I think I'm gonna be on his show, and so there's gonna be some cool exchange within the community here. So I think that's very positive.
Yeah.
Okay, in the news, so there's two, maybe three things that I would like to talk about, and I would be interested in what you have to say about it, of course, but maybe anything else you want to cover that happened recently. And this is not
Mm-hmm.
all strictly like past week, but it's it's being discussed, it's being thrown around a lot. So funny little statement is that Fred Wilson, who is a investor, pretty famous investor, predicted the Apple downturn by 2020. So he basically said that Apple would not be amongst the top 3 technology companies anymore by 2020 because they don't get the cloud and they are too focused on hardware. And I find it kind of funny because we have ranted about like how Apple is not pushing the innovation, how they are not really working well with web technology and services. But I still find it kind of amusing to say that the company will fall apart when it's doing so well as it currently is. And the second thing, this is from an article that does also pick that up, that statement, but talks more generally about how Apple is being misunderstood. It's called Misunderstanding Apple. And it says, there's a quote in that article which basically enumerates all of the statistics in terms of how much Apple is doing in the cloud. And this really it sends chills down my spine, basically, what Apple is doing in that small space where they're not making the majority of their revenue, where it's just, a side project or, a side revenue stream for them. They are, making 3 billion per year for end user services from iCloud. They're making like even just $1 billion per year for paid by Google for traffic through Apple devices. They're making like $13 billion per year for the App Store transactions, where they pay, 9 billion of that goes to the developers, but still almost 4 billion stays at Apple for just doing the App Store. So that's multi-billion companies, or that would be multi-billion companies, which is just a side project for them. So I find it still, if you do the math, if you look at these numbers, what they sell, the amounts of stuff they sell over cloud services, so to speak, is mind-boggling.
Yeah, well, it's 4 billion roughly, adding up these numbers right here. I think what Fred Wilson's talking about is the iCloud and how badly they've missed on backing up your computer and photos and some of these other services. And it'd be different if it was just some TechCrunch author coming up with an angle. But Fred Wilson is, I don't know, if people were to list like the top 5 tech VCs, he'd be up there, or Union Square would be up there, right? So, yeah. I don't know if he's going to put his investments where his prediction is, but yeah, I don't know. Here's my take on it. I used to work really closely with Hewlett Packard, and everyone would say, "Oh my gosh, Hewlett Packard is even when they have a down quarter, they're still humongous, and they still sell more to enterprise or more printers or more whatever. There's always something they're doing well. They're still a $15 billion company, even if it's not so much this way or that way, whatever the hot thing was at the time, right?"
Yeah.
And but I worked so closely with them, I got to see operationally how they worked, and they struggled. They really struggled. Mark Hurd came in and really turned it around, and then he was fired. He was fired for like giving contracts to some cute girl that he was dating, or it's kind of like a lame firing, like a high school firing. But HP, I'm kind of pissed why they're down, because they just announced more layoffs last night. But they're like almost solely a company killer and a hardware play now. Right? None of their software is taken off. Every software they buy, they kill. They bought Palm OS and Palm, and they killed it when they were in a great position to do something with it. They just buy stuff and kill it. And I don't know if Apple Apple right now, you look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, they can do no wrong, and everyone makes more money as developers developing on Apple and all this stuff. Most developers hate publishing apps with Apple because
Yeah.
it's so painful working with them, and I see some of the same arrogance and process dysfunction with Apple. It reminds me a lot of working with HP back in the day. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't dug into the numbers enough to really get a good feel. And even so, what if I'm not involved in cloud enough? Is that really that big a deal? That hard to catch up? etc. But operationally, it feels like Apple isn't as strong as some of the other companies that do things very well. And I'm always impressed with how well Google does stuff. Um, like they
Well, Google
anticipate.
is really like the only other company you could cite,
Yeah.
right? I
Well,
mean,
for apps,
which
yeah.
other company is executing so well? I think the issue that I think where the author here says that you're misunderstanding Apple is you're holding Apple to its own standard, which is so ridiculously high that you will
Yeah,
like
that might
announce
be true.
its downfall when there's no competition. I mean, it's yeah, Google, but it's the only competition. There's like one company right now that is maybe doing the same kind of uh, operationally excellence that Apple is performing right now, and there's nothing else. So I mean, Microsoft isn't even close. So I think, yeah, I'm very unhappy with what Apple's doing, of course. Most developers are, and even some users tell me, like on the street, I often hear like, yeah, but there's nothing different about the latest iPhone, or there's not been something cool since 2 years or so.
Right.
But
Like
they still
Siri was a
buy,
bomb, right? Siri bombed. That was the big
yeah,
thing.
that
And
wasn't, yeah. But they still buy it. They'll still like if their iPhone's broken and it breaks, they'll buy the next one. They're not going to switch. So we'll see.
yeah, there's some funny comments in here. Um, One of the people say, "Look, this guy is the guy that sold Apple at $91 and is currently
Yeah.
around 600." So, yeah, and maybe I think Fred Wilson is cooler than he is, just because he's got an active blog and he's out there. Like I'm not in the VC world. I'm not going around pitching things or investing things with these guys, so I have no idea how important this guy is. Maybe I just assumed he's important because he's vocal, which is not a good assumption. But I know he's well known, but that doesn't necessarily mean he knows what he's talking about.
Mm.
Um,
Well, I think I
yeah,
have. Go ahead.
I was gonna say either way for us, you never want to be with one partner or even two partners. You want to
Exactly.
be as diversified as possible. So, as app publishers and developers, we want to be on Android, on Amazon, on Apple iOS, and be looking at whatever else is coming. Because yeah, you want
Yeah,
more than one
and
partner.
beyond even like just app stores, probably, which Steve talked about on the episode as well. But I think I myself said on the podcast before that I think Apple is showing some cracks in their armor, so to speak, and I think that it's a bad sign, but that doesn't mean it's gonna be gone anytime soon, and it doesn't mean there's no way to turn it around. I think Apple is they still follow this structure, like very small teams, and have still this philosophy from when they were a small underdog. And I think what could be going on is that what we are just seeing is a company failing to adapt very fast to a very big change. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean it will never adapt or that it will kill it because it doesn't adapt. It may just need a little bit more time. But
yeah,
I can see it turn both ways is all I'm saying. Um,
yeah.
the last thing I wanted to talk about, and whatever else you want to do,
Mhm.
um, is that Apple is apparently buying Beats
Yeah.
and not buying it for cheap. So rumored is $3.2 billion dollars. I think it's not officially confirmed yet, and the purchase isn't through, but there seems to be a consensus that that's what's going on. And it's very controversial. Like, why would Apple buy uh, a headphone company?
You had an interesting insight, I think, last week on the weekly when we talked about it. I
Hmm.
forget what it was now, but
Right. And yeah, I was thinking we talked about this before. So the reason I'm bringing this up again is there have been a lot of speculations, like why they would do it, but I still think none of them make sense. And I still think what I said last week still makes sense. So the two arguments I've heard were that either it's a natural fit for Apple because they are selling personal computers plus accessories, and that's what they've done forever. That's true, but it fails to recognize that you will never, ever, ever sell $3.2 billion worth of accessories for the iPhone in headphones. So the second explanation is that it is a natural fit for Apple because Beats has just started to do their own streaming service, and Apple might just go into streaming music, like something like Spotify or similar.
didn't they just
Again,
do radio? So they kind of already have that, right?
I mean, first of all, they have the infrastructure. I think it's not like you need the technical expertise to pull it off. And second of all, um, it's not like that's a really good business either. So even if you're doing the same scale that Spotify is doing, and Spotify is doing very well, like compared to its own standard, but there's no way to scale that business to $3.2 billion dollars. So the remaining explanation was that they just hired them. They bought them to hire the talent. But seriously, can you imagine Dr. Dre on the Apple board of advisors, something like that? I mean, how would that fit into the
No,
company culture and make any kind of sense? So I can't really
I don't
see
get
how.
it. Here, Dave, you got to carry this for 30 seconds. I have to deal with something, okay?
Yeah, that's why we're live.
It's live, buddy. 30 seconds.
So I think I'm just going to continue. So you can't really say they're hiring them because that would be a little. First of all, it would be a lot of money just to hire two people, one of whom is, was in jail, and I don't know how that works with Apple's image. I can't really see how they're um, making so much money with streaming, or how there's even the potential to grow the business so significantly out of streaming music that it would justify a $3.2 billion purchase. And also, I can't see how you would make so much money using accessories in even high margin accessories like Beats does in selling just headphones. So there's just one reason I can still think of, and that's the one that I gave you last time, that Apple is buying the Beats for their image. And they're buying them for the image because they are implementing something into headphones, which is kind of weird. So we all know Google Glass. I think everybody does know it, has at least seen it online. And hey, Chris,
Hey, sorry about that.
I was just saying, I think we all know
I
Google
heard everything.
Glass. Okay.
Well, hold on, real quick. I want to comment on the on the Beats thing. So we just talked about how they don't have enough cloud, or we didn't talk about it. Someone said they didn't have enough cloud, and then they make another. They double down as much as they make a year. That's revenue, I think, is 4 billion in revenue, right? They spent 4 billion in revenue and then turned it around and bought a headset maker, a hardware play again, right? So I don't know. This is the kind of stuff HP would have done 5 years ago. That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. But we'll see. I mean, we're in this big time with Apple. Like, so I make most of my money from Apple. So their strength is good for me.
Yeah, but
I don't want to root for their demise, right?
there's a positive spin to that acquisition story, because I still think none of these reasons make sense. So the only reason they would buy Beats is for the image. And what I mean by that is that they're planning to do something awkward, and it's something as awkward as Google Glass. So Google has the problem, how are we going to sell Glass? So they paired up with Ray-Ban, or however you want to pronounce that. Those high price glasses. And why are they doing it? Because they want to take the awkwardness away and attach the coolness of this other brand. And I think Apple is doing the same thing with Beats. They have something.
I remember now what you said. You said biometric quantify itself.
Yeah. They have something in their earphones which is weird, which probably tracks biometrics or any kind of that stuff. And it's so weird, they are worried people will never use it. And so they are trying to attach this coolness factor of the Beats to that technology, which might be worth much more than 4 billion, because it will be something that you can only use with an iPhone, only use within the Apple universe, which then creates much more hardware sales on the primary hardware side. And then suddenly the accessories can be worth $3.2 billion.
And think about this. If it's the quantified self thing, who better than having a bunch of athletes? Because you see them get out of the bus and head to the tunnel, and they're always got their Beats on. And who better than to have LeBron as your spokesman for, anytime someone's wearing a Beats headphones, there's no like blinking light that says measuring, right? You just assume every single athlete would all of a sudden be an endorsement for, they're doing quantified self, they're doing biometric reading, and they're stud athletes. All right, you just sold me on this, dude.
The entire quantified self movement would suddenly be associated with the Apple brand, which Apple just grabs that and makes it synonymous with themselves, because they will be first to commoditize that, to bring it to the mainstream market.
Yeah.
So
they started with designers, right? They had designers covered. Like, remember everyone, you don't remember this, but in offices, everyone would have a laptop or PC, and then the design or marketing team would have Macs every time, right? And Macs are not very prevalent in corporate America, but now you get to entrepreneur land. Everyone in entrepreneur land has a Mac, right? From guys like Cuban, all the way down to guys like me bouncing around the world with my MacBook. So to carve off another thing like that and get all the quantified self guys, because that's not a small community, and it's brand new. Like, there's barely any technology in this small community.
It's about to explode.
Yeah. Well, all right, dude. So are we buying Apple at 600 now? I was just ready to sell it at 600 a couple of minutes ago.
I'm not. I mean, that's just a theory. It could be just as likely that I don't know, whatever. All of these other reasons could be their original true reason as well. But I just have a hard time believing Apple is that unorganized yet. So we'll see. Yeah,
that'll be a good one to watch. And that's why, again, this space is so fun, so much happening. And if that is the case, then boy, we need to get ready with. I mean, people are already getting ready with this kind of stuff, but I'm not. I have no app ideas. I have no ideas for this kind of stuff. But yeah, there's tons of stuff.
Yeah, we'll find something.
Can do. Yeah. I mean, I've got 30 ideas right now, so on app stuff. So I imagine in 6 months with some thinking, I could have some ideas for sure.
Great,
What
Chris.
else, dude?
Yeah, for me, that's it from my side. I thought that was quite something.
I think we should, because the audience on the podcast is so much bigger, it might be cool. And you know what? In fairness, for the YouTube channel that we created, we don't really have a lot of people to broadcast it to. But YouTube is a huge search engine. So we started optimizing these posts, right? So
Yeah,
maybe, um, who knows? Maybe we'll start generating some people to watch there. But right now we have like, what do we set up? We set up the community like 2 weeks ago. We have like 40 people that have signed up. Um, so we only have a way to communicate what we're doing with 40 people, you know?
yeah,
So uh, I still think we just keep going with this and we keep refining what we're doing. It's kind of nice being able to practice when no one watching, although, in a year, if this is a hit, everyone's going to be watching this episode. So hello, future self in a year. But yeah, I think we should just keep busting out this format until we've done the whole 13 weeks and said, okay, this isn't working. But even just for
or
exploring topics, like the Fred Wilson conversation would be good for the podcast, I think.
yeah, yeah, and I think we're going to start interconnecting all of these different channels of the ABP. So we're thinking about doing a newsletter. We're thinking about how we can leverage the blog more. And so, like, there will be transcriptions for all episodes. And so we might, have the weekly being posted to the newsletter or whatever. I mean, there's going to be
Right.
ways where we can share this. And now that I'm thinking of it, we could maybe have it more prevalent on the main site. Yeah, we'll figure it out, I guess, over time.
Yeah.
And to all the listeners, again, if you have suggestions like how we could make this more valuable and how we can interact with you more, I think that's the main theme, then let me know. I'm really thinking about this.
And yeah, that is the main thing. Like, we started this podcast because David and I wanted to just record some of the conversations we were having and challenge ourselves to kind of be on top of it. And because we have the podcast, we can like interview cool people and like develop relationships with other people that are doing things. But I mean, we started this because we want to talk about this stuff and we want to be, the mastermind was 8 people. We want to have a group of 100 people that are all talking and sharing their thoughts and growth and strategies and all this stuff. So, I mean, anything that happens with the podcast is great, numbers related and everything, but we get more of a kick out of the emails or the tweets or the discussion points because that's really what we're in it for. We want to be talking to more people, helping them come up to our levels and then passing us, and then they can help us get to their new level or however that works.
Yeah.
So so we love it when people are joining. Now we have about 10 people that comment on every other episode or email us or tweet us, and so we're building like a core group, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I don't even know those guys really well yet. So that's why the Facebook group's there and some of these other things. But hopefully, we're hoping this turns into a conversation. We're hoping people start putting stuff in the Q&A that we just learned how to turn on. So we're figuring it out, but the conversation is key.
Yep.
All right, that's the end of my speech.
End of your speech, end of our weekly review. Nice. I enjoyed it, Chris. Talk to you soon, where we're gonna record some episodes for next week. Cool.
Yep, sounds good, David. See you guys.
Bye.